They said Nena died on a rainy Thursday. A crash on the expressway. A burnt car. No body. No autopsy. Just a coffin closed too fast. Too quietly. And a husband, Ikenna, who shed no real tears. Only wiped the sweat from his brow as if relieved. They called it tragic. But something about it never felt complete. Not the rushed burial. Not the missing death certificate. Not the fact that her own family never saw her body. And now, 2 years later, Lagos was buzzing again. Not with grief, but celebration. Ikenna, the renowned architect, was about to marry the daughter of a former governor. The invitations said it was a union of power and grace. The blogs called them the perfect couple. Everyone believed it. Everyone. Except the woman he left behind. Far from the city lights, in a small compound in Enugu, Nena sat on the floor, braiding her son's hair. The boy giggled, unaware of the storm about to hit. She had watched the wedding announcements from a cracked tablet screen, watched Ikenna's face beam as he posed in matching agbada with his new bride. The same smile he wore the day he swore to love Nena forever. The same face she once trusted with her entire life. But behind that smile was a man who told the world she was gone. Dead. Burned. Forgotten. And yet here she was. Flesh. Breath. Heartbeat. Alive. She remembered everything. The car that spun off the road. The explosion. The strangers who pulled her out. The hospital where her name was missing from the system. The slow, painful healing. And the devastating news that reached her weeks later. Her husband said she had died. He signed the death papers, held a funeral, took her son, and vanished. But he didn't know she had survived. He didn't know she'd spent months fighting to get back to her child. That every breath she took was a step closer to truth. She didn't come back to fight for love. She came to expose a lie. And now, as she zipped up a simple Ankara dress and tucked a folded paper into her handbag, the boy beside her holding tightly to her fingers, she whispered calmly, "We're going to see Daddy today." In Lagos, the wedding was already in full swing. Cameras flashed. Laughter echoed. Champagne glasses clinked. No one saw the storm brewing. No one saw the shadow at the gate. No one expected the bridegroom's past to come walking down the aisle, holding his son's hand. As the MC announced, "Please rise for the bride," the church doors slowly creaked open, but it wasn't the bride walking in. It was the woman Ikenna buried. Alive. And she wasn't alone. First, no one moved. The heavy wooden doors stood open like the gates of judgment. Sunlight spilled through them, framing her figure in sharp golden light. A hush fell over the crowd, swallowing the last note of the wedding singer's song. People leaned forward, confused. Whispers floated from one guest to another. Phones started recording. Nena stepped into the hall slowly, her eyes sweeping over the sea of silk lace and glittering headpieces. In one hand, she held a slim envelope. In the other, the tiny palm of her son, Obi. He looked like his father. Too much like him. The little boy blinked at the crowd and held tighter to her hand. Nena didn't flinch. Not when she saw the shock on the officiating pastor's face. Not when she noticed the bride's mother gasping and clutching her handbag like it was a holy relic. And certainly not when her eyes landed on him. Kenna. There he stood at the altar, dressed like royalty in a pure white agbada embroidered with gold. His cap tilted slightly to the side. His lips parted in confusion. His eyes wide. His skin slowly draining of color. For a moment, the whole world seemed to freeze. Then he blinked. He blinked again. He staggered slightly. "And Nena?" he whispered, barely audible, his voice cracking. The bride turned sharply. "Who's Nena?" But Nena didn't respond. She didn't need to. The silence answered for her. Her face said everything. Unbothered, calm, but blazing with a quiet fire. This wasn't a woman resurrected to plead or beg. This was a woman back to reclaim her truth. Obi clutched her leg. "Mummy, why is Daddy looking like that?" She knelt down beside him, brushing a hand through his hair gently. "Because he thought we'd never return." Guests began to rise slowly, awkwardly, unsure if this was real or some twisted performance. A few reached for their phones. Others muttered prayers under their breath. The bride, now trembling, stared at Ikenna. What is this? Ikenna. Who is this woman? Ikenna couldn't speak. He opened his mouth but said nothing. The air felt thick. The pastor was frozen. Then Nena took a step forward and said clearly, her voice slicing through the silence. I'm the woman he buried without a coffin. The mother of his son. The wife he erased. The guests gasped in unison. She raised the envelope and handed it to the nearest usher. This is proof. DNA tests, hospital records, and a marriage certificate still valid under Nigerian law. She turned to the crowd. I didn't come to ruin a wedding. I came to correct a lie. Her voice didn't tremble once. The bride stumbled backward, eyes darting between Ikenna and the child who now stood staring up at the altar like he didn't understand why his father hadn't run to hug him. Ikenna took a step forward, sweat glistening on his forehead. How are you alive? Nena looked him in the eye and whispered, You never cared enough to ask. And just like that, the wedding stopped. But the real ceremony, the one of secrets, betrayal, and truth, was just beginning. The church hall was no longer a place of celebration. It had turned into a courtroom. Guests sat stiffly in their seats, their geli and igbadas now wilting with unease. No one reached for champagne anymore. Phones were no longer snapping pictures, they were filming evidence. The bride's makeup, once flawless, now ran in streaks as she stared at Ikenna like he'd grown horns. You told me she died. You said she was burned beyond recognition. Nena turned slightly, her voice sharp. Oh, he made sure everyone believed that. He even convinced my family. Said the body was too charred to view. Lied to the police. Lied to the world. But most of all, he lied to me. She walked down the aisle now, one step at a time. Obi's small feet padded beside her. I remember the moment the car flipped, she said quietly, her voice for the room now. The impact, the fire, and then darkness. I woke up in a rural hospital. No ID, no contact. My face swollen beyond recognition. For weeks I couldn't speak, couldn't move. All I kept thinking was, my son, my husband. They'll come looking. She paused just beside the altar. Ikenna stared at her, his lips twitching, his eyes darting toward the exit like a man planning to flee. But no one came, she continued, because someone told them I was already dead. Ikenna snapped. I thought you were gone. The authorities confirmed it. No, you confirmed it, Nena said, turning toward him fully now. You filed the death claim within 72 hours. You moved Obi into your mother's house. And 3 months later, you emptied our joint account and bought a plot of land in Lekki. Gasps rippled through the room. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small folder. These are the bank statements, the withdrawal records, all dated, all signed by you. I didn't mean, he stammered, sweat soaking through his collar. You didn't mean to get caught, she corrected. For a moment, the only sound was Obi, softly whispering, Mummy, why is Daddy crying? Nena crouched beside him again. Because he built his new life on a lie. And lies never last. The pastor, once ready to bless a union, now looked like he wanted to melt into the marble floor. Sister, what exactly are you requesting here today? Nena stood, slowly, fully facing the church. I want nothing. Not his money. Not his pity. Not even an apology. I just want my truth back. My name. My son. My dignity. And for the woman he deceived to know that the man she almost married tried to erase a living woman to build a perfect life. All heads turned to the bride, who now shook violently in her heels. Her mother rushed forward, whispering something about scandal, disgrace, and annulment. Ikenna stepped forward, finally raising his voice. Nena, we can talk about this. Not here. Please, don't do this in front of everyone. She tilted her head, calm. You tried to bury me in private. It's only fair I resurrect in public. Then she turned to the bride and said softly, Before you wear that ring, ask him how many more graves he's dug for his convenience. The tension shifts from emotional revelation to emotional confrontation. The spotlight turns inward as Nena and Ikenna finally face the truth, and the bride, caught between the two, begins to unravel. The church had become a furnace of shame and whispers. Cameras stopped rolling because no one could keep their hands still. No one wanted to breathe too loudly, afraid they'd miss the next crack in Ikenna's polished facade. But the biggest fracture came not from Nena's lips, but from the bride's. She looked at Ikenna like she was seeing a stranger. "You told me she died. You said she didn't survive the crash. That the child was from another woman. One who abandoned you." Ikenna opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Ada Ora, No," she snapped. "Don't Ada Ora me." Her voice shook. "You made me believe I was helping a grieving man. That I was stepping in to be a mother to a child whose mum had left him to rot. You let me hold that boy, kiss his forehead. And all that time his real mother, your wife, was alive." Nena turned to her gently. "He used your sympathy the same way he used my loyalty. It's what he does." The bride staggered back, her hand on her chest. Her father rose from his seat in the front row. A retired governor. The man's face was unreadable, but his eyes burned holes into Ikenna. "You've disgraced my family," he said, voice like thunder. "This wedding is off." That was the beginning of Ikenna's fall. But it wasn't the end. He spun toward Nena, voice trembling between anger and desperation. "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything. When I thought you were gone, you didn't think," she said flatly. "You decided I was gone. You didn't wait. You didn't search. You buried me with ink and lies." The child, Obi, now looked up with confusion in his eyes. "Daddy, are you still going to marry the new auntie?" Ikenna flinched like he'd been punched. The crowd collectively inhaled. "No, baby," Nena said quickly, kneeling beside her son. "No one is getting married today." Obi tilted his head. "So, are we going back home now?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We're going somewhere better." Ikenna looked around. His dream wedding now a public scandal, his bride walking out in tears, and his past standing tall in front of him, not broken or begging, but whole. And that's when he cracked. His voice rose, shrill. "What do you want from me? Is this revenge? Is that what this is?" "No," Nena replied, still calm. "Revenge would have been quiet, legal, private. I could have let you marry her and sued you after. Then why come here?" She stepped forward and said, softly, "Because you told the world I was gone, and I needed them to see with their own eyes that I never left. I survived. I healed. And I remembered everything." He stared at her, speechless. She leaned in one last time. "The real question isn't why I came back. It's why you never looked for me." As Nena turned to walk out with her son, a woman in the crowd stood and shouted, "Wait! I know her! I was in that hospital." She wasn't the only secret he tried to bury. Gasps spread through the room like a virus. All eyes turned to the woman standing at the back, clad in a modest lilac dress, clutching a worn purse, her voice trembling but clear. "I was there," she said again, "at the rural clinic in Succa. I remember her. Burn wounds. No ID. She couldn't even speak at first." Nena's brows furrowed. Her memory was foggy from those early weeks, but something about the woman's face stirred recognition. "I'm Ngozi," the woman continued, walking slowly down the aisle. "A volunteer nurse. I bathed you, fed you. I held your hand when you cried for your son in your sleep." The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Ikenna's face was now pale, sweat soaking his expensive fabric. "Miss Ngozi," the pastor asked gently, "are you saying you remember the patient who survived the car crash?" Ngozi nodded. "Yes, and I remember the day a man came to the hospital, asking questions." Everyone leaned in. "He wore sunglasses indoors, kept his head down," Ngozi said, glaring at Ikenna. "He asked if a woman had been brought in after an accident. I said yes, that she was alive but unconscious. He asked if she could speak yet. I told him not yet." Her voice cracked. He left. He never came back. A deafening silence. Akena's head dropped. You knew, Nena whispered. You knew I was alive. Akena didn't deny it. Ngozi continued, her voice shaking with fury. I reported it to the head nurse. She tried contacting the authorities, but the report got lost. Or buried. Who knows what he did. But I knew I saw evil that day, and I never forgot your face. Nena's lips trembled, but she steadied herself. You let them mourn me, she said to Ikena. You signed my death certificate while I was still breathing. I was scared. Ikena shouted, voice shrill now. Your accident happened at the worst time. Investors were watching me. People said I was too young to be taken seriously with a family. I didn't know how to start over with you scarred, broken. Say that again, she snapped, stepping closer. He flinched. Say that to the face of the woman who rebuilt herself from ash, who raised your son alone, who stayed quiet until now. I didn't think you'd come back, he barked. And if you did, I didn't think you'd be strong. She stared at him hard. That's the thing about women like me. We don't need permission to rise. Obi clutched her hand, his small voice breaking through the room again. Mummy, are we going home now? Nena nodded slowly. Yes, baby, but not the one we left. She turned to the pastor and quietly said, Thank you for letting me speak. I'm done here. Ngozi stepped forward and whispered, No, you're not. There's one more thing you should see. She handed Nena a flash drive. You weren't the only woman he tried to erase. As the projector screen lit up at the back of the church and a hidden folder of photos began to play, Ikena screamed, Turn it off! But it was too late. The whole room was watching. The church lights dimmed slightly as the projector flickered on. Gasps rippled again, this time louder, sharper. The screen lit up with time-stamped photos. Ikena at a private maternity ward. Ikena paying off a midwife. Ikena with another woman, pregnant, crying. And finally, a blurred hospital CCTV clip. The woman screaming at him, being wheeled away, and Ikena walking out without looking back. The room froze. Ngozi's voice rang clear. This wasn't his first cover-up. He convinced that girl he'd marry her. Then disappeared. She nearly died giving birth alone. Lies! Ikena yelled, but no one was listening. Even his own family now sat with heads bowed. The pastor turned to him. How many lives have you tried to erase, Ikena? How many women did you silence to build your empire? But it was the bride's father, the retired governor, who delivered the final blow. This man, he said, rising slowly, is a danger. I'll personally ensure the authorities receive this footage. Fraud, identity falsification, attempted bigamy. Your wedding was cancelled. Now your reputation is. Security from the church quietly closed the main doors. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were verdicts. Ikena dropped to his knees. Nena, please, say something. Help me. We loved each other. She knelt face level with his. I loved you, she said. Past tense. I mourned you while I healed. I forgave you while I rebuilt. But I will never forget what you chose to become when you thought I was gone. Obi squeezed her hand. You can explain to your God now. And to the court later. She stood slowly. And just as she reached the door, the pastor's voice rang out one last time. May the truth set you free, or at least bury the lies you built. The crowd parted for her again, this time in reverence. She didn't look back. The church doors opened, sunlight pouring in. She stepped out holding her son's hand, walking into a future she had earned with scars, silence, and strength. Photographers waiting outside began snapping. One reporter asked, Madam, can we have a statement? Nena stopped, her heels planted like a queen's, her tone calm and precise. Just one, she said. Tell every woman watching this. Never let a man write your obituary while you're still alive. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.